Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us to talk about these important changes to Oregon leave laws. So our agenda. First, we're going to talk about a very important date coming up, which is July 1st, 2024. Then we're going to move in and talking about the new and improved Oregon Family Leave Act. Then some changes to Paid Leave Oregon. We'll walk through some scenarios together, as well as talk about how, as employers, everyone should be preparing for these changes. And then at the end, we have some time reserved for a question and answer session. A few things not on the agenda today. We are not going to be talking about the basics of OFLA and Paid Leave Oregon, like who is eligible, how much time. We're really focusing on these upcoming July 1st changes. So think of it as it's not your 101 level class, it's like your 201 level class. If you have questions about basics, please feel free to reach out to us afterwards. We're happy to provide that information. It's just not the focus of today's presentation. We are also not going to be touching on every applicable leave law. As a reminder, a lot of these same issues may end up be covering by Oregon Sick Leave, the Family Medical Leave Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act. All of those are still going to apply and be important when you're facing these issues with your business. We're just not talking about them today. We're really focusing on just OFLA and Paid Leave Oregon and the changes that are coming up. I would also note retaliation is in there. We may touch on it a little bit, but that's another thing that should always be in your mind. We'll talk about this a bit later, but there is some retroactivity and delay with Paid Leave Oregon claims. So just because somebody is denied Paid Leave Oregon or no longer has a qualifying reason under OFLA, it doesn't mean you're totally off the hook because they have requested that leave. So again, those are things we're not going to talk about in detail, but I want you to keep in mind if you have questions about them to please reach out. So first step, July 1st, 2024. This is our key date for everything that we're going to be talking about today. July 1st, if it's not already on your HR calendar, it should be. Remember this date. Back in February, the legislature passed Senate Bill 1550, and that's really the reason that we're here. It was a massive overhaul to OFLA. Some really big changes aimed at addressing the inconsistencies and overlap that we were all seeing between the laws, issues that a lot of employers had raised. This was the legislature's attempt to try and fix those, to try to make it as streamlined and comprehensible as possible. And again, effective July 21st. And then I'm going to say it wrong. July 1st, 2024. Don't worry, I have it on several more slides, so I can say it wrong this one time and we'll still be fine. So I'm going to turn it over to Rachel, who's going to start talking about kind of the substance of these changes.
Thank you, Jordan, and good morning, everybody. The first item on the agenda is the quote, new and improved OFLA Family Leave Act. Will you click the slide? Thank you. Just a quick overview of OFLA. It was passed back in 1995, and it consolidated a few of Oregon's prior leave laws, including the Parental Leave Act, Pregnancy Disability Act, and FEMLA. And generally, it provided 12 weeks of protected unpaid time off per year for employees for various reasons, including parental leave, serious health condition, pregnancy disability, sick child, military family, and bereavement. And I'm sure all of you are quite familiar with this act as it stood before July 1st. And Senate Bill 1515 changed OFLA, so now OFLA leave is not going to be available for everything that it used to be. It is only for sick child leave, bereavement leave for the death of a family member, pregnancy disability leave, and that is still going to be 12 weeks in addition to any OFLA that you could take for additional reasons such as sick child or bereavement leave. And employees can also take OFLA leave for organ donation purposes. And another change in Senate Bill 1515 is that bereavement leave is capped at 2 weeks per each family member, and employees are entitled to 4 weeks maximum per benefit year. One of the most important changes is that OFLA will not run concurrently with paid leave Oregon, and any leave for new OFLA reasons will be in addition to the paid leave under paid leave Oregon. So some reasons will be covered under OFLA, some reasons will be covered under paid leave Oregon, and so the leave will not run concurrently. And until July 1st, 2024 is a very important date, but until January 1st, 2025, employees will be able to take 2 weeks of OFLA leave to assist with placement or adoption of a child. And after that, it will fall under paid leave Oregon. And we were talking a little bit about this the other day, and we believe that it's essentially a bridge provision to extend OFLA coverage for adoption or placement of a child, probably because the legislature was cognizant of the fact that the adoption process is very long, and giving employees a little bit more time to take that leave. But after January 1st, 2025, adoption or placement of a child will be covered under paid leave Oregon, not OFLA. And this was an old change, but we thought I believe it was from Senate Bill 1919, which was passed last year, but paid leave Oregon, the benefit year was always 52 weeks measured forward from the Sunday immediately preceding the leave. And as of July 1st, 2024, that will be the same for OFLA as well. So for tracking purposes, both programs are going to have the same benefit year. Okay, important recap. Starting July 1st, 2024, we're going to say that date 10 more times. Nobody will be able to forget it. OFLA will not cover parental leave or serious health condition leave. Those will be solely under paid leave Oregon. The 2 programs will not run concurrently, and the OFLA benefit year is going to match the paid leave Oregon benefit year. So that's 52 weeks measuring forward from the Sunday immediately preceding the leave. The other program that everybody has been talking about the last few years is paid leave Oregon, and Senate Bill 1515 made a few changes to that as well. Quick overview of paid leave Oregon as well. It was passed by the legislature in, I believe, 2019, and after some delays having to do with COVID and OED benefits, employees were able to take benefits beginning September 3rd, 2023. And paid leave Oregon provides generally 12 weeks or 14 for childbirth purposes of paid leave for family leave, medical leave, and safe leave. And it's not a full wage replacement. Some employees will receive their entire wage. Some employees will receive a percentage of it. It's capped at a weekly maximum of about $1,500 for 2024, I believe. And the amount that employees are eligible to take for benefits is calculated on a percentage of income and the state average weekly wage, which is taken from the workers' comp statutes. Changes to paid leave Oregon, courtesy of Senate Bill 1515. So paid leave Oregon, as it stood, there was some ambiguity as to whether employees could top up the benefits that they receive from the state. And some employers were allowing it, some employers weren't. So Senate Bill 1515 made it clear that employees can top up their paid leave Oregon benefits up to 100% of their wage. Employers can permit employees to go beyond 100%, but they're not required to. and employers may establish an order in which employees use accrued leave. So employers can say, you will first use your sick leave benefits and then any vacation benefits, anything like that. So you're able to establish an order in which those are used, but employees must be able to use those benefits to top up to get their 100% of their wage or more if desired. There will no longer be penalties for employers that deal with predictive scheduling laws when employees return from paid leave from paid leave, and paid leave benefits are exempt from garnishment except for child or spousal support and crime victim restitution. So here are a few things that we've heard from employers. You cannot require that an employee apply for or use paid leave. Employees can choose to use OFLA or FMLA first and defer their paid leave. Intermittent leave must be for a full day. So under OFLA, employees could take intermittent leave for less than a day, and under paid leave Oregon, intermittent leave must be used for a full day, and parental leave can be intermittent. So before OFLA, under OFLA, parental leave was only able to be taken for a full 12 weeks. And now employees are able to take, one Friday off for the next 3 months or however they would like to do it, but it can be intermittent as of July 1st, 2024. And paid leave can be approved retroactively for up to 30 days. And this is something that we wanted to note because, for example, if an employee applied for paid leave Oregon, they weren't approved, but their approval hadn't come in yet. They didn't show up to work for 30 days. If the employer wanted to discipline them for any reason, they terminated them, for example, and then their paid leave was approved retroactively, the employer would have just terminated them for taking protected leave. So that's something we want to be really cognizant of. So just because an employee's paid leave benefits haven't been approved, just be really careful of taking into account any absence control policies, because we don't want any retaliation claims to be possible. Some other, I don't know if it's helpful, but some other things to know are that OED is facing, or paid leave Oregon, excuse me, is facing significant delays in awarding benefit decisions and distributing benefits. There's a backlog of claims. They received a ton of applications at the beginning of September, and they're still making their way through some of those. The hold times for paid leave Oregon have been pretty brutal to a lot of employers and employees, and they actually recently reduced their phone hours further to try and focus on processing the backlog of claims. And Jordan was telling me yesterday that the shortest hold time she's ever received was about an hour, and she was on the phone for an hour and a half. So, and that was before they even reduced their phone hours further. So just be aware that calling paid leave Oregon might not be the best way to get the questions answered. They have told us that Bully is the better avenue for any employer technical assistance, not paid leave Oregon. And they're also no longer responding to email questions as they were a few months ago. And employers are incredibly frustrated by these hold times. There's a lot of frustration from everybody's end, but we would definitely recommend contacting Bully for employer technical assistance, not paid leave Oregon, because I don't think anybody wants to be on hold for an hour and a half.
And just to echo what Rachel is saying here, this is different than what our experience was leading up to the start of paid leave Oregon benefits. I can't even tell you how many times I called paid leave Oregon in the month or two leading up to that September start date, I would get through super easily. They would provide employer technical assistance. That was before the giant wave of claims came in and they really started experiencing this backlog. And so I think that they have really shifted their focus. So if you, like me, are used to calling them several months ago and having no problem, that has really changed. And they've sort of changed their focus, whether they're advertising that as their change of focus. That's been our experience, that it's still easy and helpful to get that advice from BOLI, but it is less easy to get that advice from Paid Leave Oregon because they're really prioritizing processing those claims. All
And
right.
now I'm gonna
Oh.
turn it over to Jordan to go through some hypothetical scenarios that will hopefully be helpful.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so let's walk through these, and I think hopefully these will help touch on some of the questions I've seen pop up, although we may answer them separately too, but I see some common themes coming through. Okay, so scenario number one, we have an employee who is expecting a baby in September. On July 1st, she goes on pregnancy disability leave for 12 weeks. Under the new OFLA, as Rachel covered, that's going to be OFLA eligible as pregnancy disability leave. Now she has the baby on September 15th. She's going to take 14 weeks of paid leave. She's going to be eligible for 14 weeks because it's associated with childbirth. The employee returns to work around December, and then the baby gets sick. And now we're talking about OFLA sick child leave, which is one of those different purposes under OFLA that's still covered. What is that going to look like? It's going to look like 12 plus 14 plus, or could look like 12 plus 14 plus 12 weeks of leave. The leave stacking is looking different under the new laws than it was before, because the idea is the laws are not covering the same purposes anymore. So this employee is not taking 12 plus 12 plus 14 weeks of leave for parental leave. She's taking 12 weeks of pregnancy disability leave, 14 weeks of bonding leave and her own health condition leave under Paid Leave Oregon, and then up to 12 weeks of sick child leave. So they are not going to run concurrently in that instance because the qualifying reasons are not the same under the different laws. Another thing to note is that benefit year that Rachel touched on earlier. The benefit years may start at different times depending on when the employee applied for different leaves. So they're all going to be the 52 weeks rolling forward from the Sunday immediately preceding the leave, but it may be kind of staggered if you have OFLA leave starting and then Paid Leave Oregon leave starting later. Something to remind you is that OFLA leave is not going to be exhausted by that pregnancy disability leave. That is kind of an exception in the statute, that pregnancy disability leave does not count against the remaining balance of leave for other qualifying purposes. So that's why this employee is going to be able to have the 12 weeks of pregnancy disability leave and then the up to 12 weeks of sick child leave. So during this whole time, we're going to have the job protection that applies to the health insurance benefit continuation, no retaliation, all of those protections that exist under OFLA and PLO, which, that's in our 100 level course of OFLA and Paid Leave Oregon. But as a reminder, that's what we're talking about. It's not just that this employee is gone for that time, it's that all of these other benefits may be there as well. So scenario two, we have an employee and say their teenage stepchild that get the same serious illness. It's going to be a little more nuanced than on the slide here, but talking about them separately, the leave for the employee's own serious health condition is now going to be covered exclusively under Paid Leave Oregon. It is no longer going to be covered under OFLA, which means that employee is going to have up to 12 weeks of Paid Leave Oregon to deal with their own serious health condition. Looking at them separately, they would also under OFLA have up to 12 weeks to care for that teenage stepchild that has a serious or that sick child leave. So the big question that we're getting is, can we stack this for a total of 24 weeks? Kind of the messaging that we're getting from BOLI is, if that employee applies for paid leave Oregon, what employers should be analyzing is whether that same reason qualifies for OFLA. If it does, then employers can run it concurrently. But let's say this employee applies for OFLA first, notifies you as the employer, I need to take 12 weeks or however long it is to care for my sick child. You're going to, approve that OFLA leave. And then you also find out, okay, this employee also has their own serious health condition that's eligible for paid leave Oregon. You as an employer cannot force that employee to apply for paid leave Oregon. So if they exhaust their OFLA leave first, then apply for paid leave Oregon, and therefore different qualifying purposes, that paid leave Oregon claim may get approved and they may be able to stack that up for a total of 24 weeks. It's a bit of a nuanced situation because there may be employees who are trying to take these leaves simultaneously, in which case they may run concurrently. We kind of have a question mark there with BOLI if these things are happening at the same time and the employer has knowledge that there are two qualifying reasons under the two laws. Are they going to stack? Are they going to run concurrently? There's kind of two different schools of thought. The riskier position being doing both at the same time, the safer position being allowing the employee to stack. So it's all really going to come down to what does the employer know? Which leave did they apply for first? And kind of what the employee is intending to do. So in these scenarios, really strongly encourage people to be reaching out to counsel and walking through them, reaching out to BOLI, walking through them, because this is the messy part of these new laws, even with the attempted amendments to make it more clear. Okay, scenario number 3 is another one that seems to be coming up a lot for different employers. Let's say you have a new parent, then they want to take, rather than your traditional 12 weeks of bonding leave as soon as the baby is born, they want to take every Friday off because they don't have childcare on Friday. They want to take every Friday off as bonding leave. That is no longer going to be covered under OFLA. Parental leave has moved entirely under paid leave Oregon. And unlike what we're used to under OFLA and FEMLA, parental leave can be intermittent under paid leave Oregon. All paid leave Oregon leave can be intermittent. It has to be a full day, but it can be intermittent. And kind of my general rule that I would impart upon everyone here is that with paid leave Oregon specifically, you're going to rely on the state's determination of eligibility. The silver lining to that being it's taking the burden off of us as employers to make those decisions. You as an employer don't need to decide, okay, does this reason qualify for paid leave Oregon? Can they take leave in this way? They are going to submit their application to the state, and the state is either going to approve or deny those benefits. And you as an employer are going to accept the state's decision and go from there. So if the state approves it, even if maybe we don't like what the state has approved, that is going to be protected, and that's what we're going to move forward with. Which is uncomfortable. We're used to being able to make a lot of these decisions and doing a lot of this analysis. But I encourage everyone to think of the silver lining, which is that it's taking this burden off of us and putting it on the state to make those decisions. So let's talk a bit about employer next steps. What do companies need to be doing before this July 1st, 2024 deadline, which we're coming up on about 3.5 weeks from now? Everybody needs to be updating your policies. If you have not emailed us in the last month to update your OFLA policies, you need a new OFLA policy. There's changes to the qualifying purposes that we covered. The benefit year calculation needs to be changed if it hasn't already. We also need to be reviewing the paid leave Oregon practices. The employee use of other available paid time off is going to be the big one. Allowing them to either go above that 100%, capping it at the 100%. If you want to prioritize sick leave over any other types of PTO, that's all going to need to be in these policies. Everything needs to be updated if it has not been updated very recently. Another thing to be mindful of is any employees you have that are currently on OFLA or have OFLA leave approved. For example, let's say you have an employee whose partner is having a baby in August and you have already provisionally approved their OFLA leave for bonding leave. There are steps that you will need to take to rescind that OFLA leave approval because that leave will no longer be covered under OFLA. The deadline to do this was technically 4 days ago. So if you haven't done it, I would encourage you to do it quickly and feel free to reach out to us afterwards and we can help in that process. But you will need to notify the employee in writing as soon as possible that that leave is no longer protected by OFLA. And with that notice, you should be providing paid leave notices to inform them that even though it's not protected under OFLA, here's your right to paid leave Oregon, here's how you apply those standard notices that if you don't already have, Paid Leave Oregon provides. Just another layer of paint on that. Paid Leave Oregon notices continue to be very important. You should be providing them at all the times you're already required to under Paid Leave Oregon, but ahead of this kind of July 1st deadline, if you are rescinding any previous OFLA designation, you should be providing Paid Leave Oregon notice concurrently with that. If you have other information that would have been sufficient for you under the old OFLA rules to think, this might be OFLA leave, you should be providing those people Paid Leave Oregon notices. Just when in doubt, provide the Paid Leave Oregon notices to really make sure that you're covering your bases there. And this is our kind of final message, both to ourselves and to you all. This seems like a lot. It is a huge overhaul of OFLA. I know in my own experience, kind of seeing the responses in the community have been a lot of panic, a lot of big feelings about this and the way it's going to impact employees and employers. And it is a lot of changes. We are right there with you trying to deal with all these changes. The idea is to make things more streamlined and to help address those areas of confusion and overlap that we were all complaining to the state about last year when Paid Leave Oregon was rolled out. So hopefully, as we move forward and as we get through this, we're really going to see things become a lot easier and more straightforward, but it's a lot of changes. We understand. We are right there with you. We're happy to answer any questions that you all have. I'm about to turn it over for the question and answer portion. So I encourage you to submit any questions that you have through that question and answer function, and we'll have some of our other teammates jump on and answer them. If you think of things afterwards, feel free to reach out to Rachel and I. We're happy to kind of be able to discuss your more specific scenarios offline as well.